car bomb nearly killed me, and as I lay broken in the hospital, my parents called me a burden and left me to die, only to return for my grandmother's fortune, unaware of the storm I was about to unleash. The world exploded in a heartbeat. One moment I was Claire Thompson, 29, Chief Security Officer at Nexus Innovations, striding out of my San Francisco office with a victory high from nailing a pitch for our new encryption protocol. The next, I was a rag doll in a firestorm, my car erupting into a ball of flame and shrapnel that tore through the evening air like a scream. I didn't hear the blast. Not really. It was more a sensation, a bone-rattling roar that swallowed sound and sense, hurling me into a void where time stopped. My last clear thought, as glass shredded my skin and the world spun into darkness, was Lucas's face, his soft smile from last night when he'd slipped a ring onto my finger and whispered, "Forever, Claire." Forever felt like a cruel joke now. I woke to pain so raw it felt like my body was betraying me. Every nerve screamed, every breath burned. I was in a hospital bed, a tangle of tubes and wires anchoring me to machines that beeped with cold indifference. My left arm was a patchwork of bandages, my legs immobilized in casts, and my head throbbed like it was splitting open. Third-degree burns covered 20% of my body, they told me later, along with a shattered pelvis and a traumatic brain injury that should have killed me. But I was alive, barely, clinging to consciousness in a sterile room at San Francisco General. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a relentless reminder of reality. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, my throat raw from a breathing tube they'd only just removed. But I could hear, and what I heard shattered me more than the explosion ever could. My parents, Richard and Margaret Thompson, stood at the foot of my bed, their voices low but sharp, cutting through the haze of painkillers. "She's a lost cause, Doctor," my father said, his tone clipped, the same way he'd dismiss a junior associate at his law firm. "The prognosis is grim, isn't it? No need to prolong her suffering." My mother, ever the polished Silicon Valley matriarch, chimed in, her voice smooth as glass. "We just want what's best for Claire. She wouldn't want to live like this. A burden." A burden. The word hit me like a second explosion, detonating something deep inside. I wasn't their daughter in that moment. I was an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing shallow, terrified they'd realize I was awake. Dr. Nathan Pierce, my trauma surgeon, pushed back, his voice steady but edged with disgust. "Mr. Thompson, your daughter is stable. With time and treatment, she has a strong chance of recovery." My father's reply was ice cold. "We'll need to discuss what recovery really means. Financially, emotionally. This is a lot for the family to bear." I lay there, paralyzed by more than my injuries, as their footsteps faded. They hadn't come to hold my hand or pray for my survival. They'd come to negotiate my death. The realization burned hotter than the flames that had nearly consumed me. I was Claire Thompson, the girl who'd clawed her way to the top of the tech world, who'd coded her first app at 15, who'd graduated Stanford with honors while working 3 jobs, and yet to them I was disposable. But then I'd always been. Growing up in their Palo Alto mansion, I was the daughter they trotted out for photo ops, the one who had to be perfect but never praised. My brother, Ethan, 3 years younger, was their golden boy, handed everything I fought for. Private tutors, Ivy League tuition, endless adoration for his mediocre law school grades. I was the afterthought, the one who chose tech over respectable career, as if my success at Nexus Innovations was a personal affront. The only person who ever saw me, really saw me, was my grandmother Victoria. She wasn't just my father's mother. She was my sanctuary. A widow of a tech pioneer who'd helped build Silicon Valley, she lived in a sprawling Napa Valley estate, all vineyards and oak trees, where I'd spend summers coding on her porch while she poured lemonade and told me I could be anything. "Your parents chase shadows, Claire," she'd say, her silver hair catching the sunlight. "Money, status, it's all dust. You're building something real." On my 21st birthday, as I packed for Stanford, she pulled me aside, her green eyes fierce. "I'm leaving everything to you, Claire. $12 million, 0 cents. The vineyard, the stocks. Not your father, not Ethan. You, use it to live free, not to please them." I'd hugged her, not fully grasping the weight of her words. I didn't care about the money then, I just wanted her pride. Now in that hospital bed, her words echoed like a lifeline. Victoria had died 2 weeks before the explosion, and no one had told me. Not my parents, not Ethan. They'd kept it secret, and I knew why. If I died, the inheritance would likely pass to my father, their ticket to the fortune they'd always coveted. The explosion wasn't just a tragedy, it was their opportunity. My mind raced despite the fog of medication. I had to survive not just the burns, the broken bones, the brain injury, but the betrayal of the people who were supposed to love me most. Nurse Emily, with her kind eyes and steady hands, noticed I was awake. She leaned close, offering ice chips that soothed my raw throat. "You're a fighter, Claire," she whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I managed a hoarse whisper. "Lucas, where's Lucas?" Her face softened. "Your fiancé has been here every day, tearing himself apart. We sent him home to sleep a few hours ago. He'll be back soon." Fiancé. The words sparked a memory of Lucas's proposal, the candlelit rooftop dinner, his nervous laugh as he knelt. I clung to that image, a tether to something good in this nightmare. When Emily stepped out, I heard voices in the hallway. My parents again, back already. Instinct screamed to stay still, to play dead. Through slitted eyes, I saw them, with Dr. Pierce, their body language all business, no grief. "What's the cost of keeping her on life support?" my father asked, as if pricing a car. "Insurance won't cover everything, and we need to be practical," my mother added. "Victoria's estate is complicated. We're stretched thin with funeral plans. Claire wouldn't want to drain us." Dr. Pierce's voice was tight. "We don't make decisions based on cost, Mr. Thompson. Claire's brain activity is strong. She's not a lost cause." My father's tone turned sharp. "Doctor, let's be frank. She's not coming back from this. Let nature take its course." I wanted to scream, to leap from the bed and confront them, but my body was a prison. Instead, I memorized every word, every inflection, storing them like code in a secure server. They thought I was gone, a problem solved. They were wrong. I'd survived a bomb. I'd survive them too. But then came the first real test. Late that night, alone in my room, I felt a strange tug at my IV line. My eyes snapped open to see a shadow, a figure in scrubs, face obscured, adjusting my drip. The heart monitor spiked as panic flooded me. "Hey!" I croaked, my voice barely audible. The figure froze, then bolted as Emily burst in, alerted by the monitor. She checked the IV, her face paling. "This isn't right. Someone added a sedative. Way too much." She locked the line, called security, and stayed by my side, her hand gripping mine. "You're safe now, Claire. I promise." Safe. The word felt hollow. Someone had tried to kill me, again. Was it my parents? A hired hand? The rival firm Lucas later tied to the bombing? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't trust anyone beyond Emily and Dr. Pierce. When Lucas returned at dawn, his face haggard, I told him everything. The explosion, my parents' betrayal, the IV tampering. His eyes blazed with fury, but his touch was gentle as he took my bandaged hand. "And they won't touch you again, Claire. I'm digging into the bomb. It wasn't random. Your dad's law firm has connections to Cyphertech, our biggest rival. They wanted your encryption project dead." The pieces clicked, each one sharper than the last. My father, a corporate lawyer with a Rolodex of shady clients, had motive and means. My project threatened Cyphertech's market dominance. My death would bury it and hand him Victoria's fortune. Lucas pulled out his laptop, showing me encrypted chats he'd intercepted, hinting at a payoff to a bomb maker. "I need you to stay hidden," I whispered. "They can't know I'm awake, or they'll push harder." Lucas nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll play the grieving fiancé, keep them off your trail. But we need to move fast. Your grandmother's estate is the key." That afternoon, I used a burner phone Lucas smuggled in to check my emails. Buried among work updates was a message from Sophia Chen, Victoria's attorney, dated 3 days before the explosion. "Urgent. Estate of Victoria Hamilton. You are the sole beneficiary of $12 million, 0 cents, including a Napa vineyard and tech stocks. Contact me immediately." My heart pounded. $12 million. No wonder my parents were circling like vultures. I called Sophia, my voice weak but clear. "I'm alive, but my parents can't know. They're trying to kill me." Her gasp was audible. "Claire, thank God. Victoria warned me your father might try to interfere. The will is airtight, but we need to act quickly." Sophia explained that Victoria had anticipated my father's greed, structuring the will to exclude him and limit Ethan to a $50,000 0 cents trust. If I died, the estate would go to charities, not my father, a detail he'd likely challenge. "He's already tried," Sophia said. "He showed up at my office, claiming you authorized him to handle everything. I shut him down, but he's furious." I closed my eyes, picturing my father's red-faced rage. "Keep him in the dark," I said, "and start transferring the assets to me. Now!" The next days were a gauntlet of pain and paranoia. My second brush with death came during a routine transfer to radiology. The elevator lurched, then plummeted 2 floors before grinding to a stop. I gripped the wheelchair, heart racing, as the orderly cursed and hit the emergency button. "Faulty wiring," he muttered, but I saw his hand shake. Lucas later confirmed the elevator's controls had been sabotaged, likely by the same people who'd tampered with my IV. "They're getting desperate," he said, "installing a hidden camera in my room. We're close to exposing them." Dr. Pierce became an unexpected ally, his disgust at my parents' behavior fueling his protectiveness. He falsified my chart to show intermittent consciousness, buying us time. Emily, now my confidant, documented every suspicious incident, from the IV tampering to an unauthorized visitor caught lurking near my room. "You're not alone," she told me, her voice fierce. "We're your family now." Her words cracked something open in me, a mix of gratitude and grief for the family I'd never had. The third danger struck during a physical therapy session. I was strapped into a machine to test my leg mobility when it malfunctioned, the weight slamming down inches from my head. The therapist screamed, yanking me free as metal crashed to the floor. "It was calibrated wrong," she stammered, but I knew better. Someone wanted me dead, or at least too broken to fight for my inheritance. Lucas traced the machine's logs, finding a remote override linked to a server at Cyphertech. "Your dad's in deep," he said, showing me emails between Richard and a Cyphertech executive. "They're not just after the money. They want Nexus out of the game." I pushed through the pain, forcing myself to sit up, to think, to plan. Every surgery, 4 in total, including skin grafts that felt like fire, tested my will. Every night I feared another attack. The 4th came at 2 a.m., when a fire alarm triggered a chaotic evacuation. In the confusion, a masked figure slipped into my room, syringe in hand. I screamed, my voice stronger now, and a security guard tackled him. The syringe held enough fentanyl to stop my heart. "Who sent you?" I demanded, but he stayed silent, arrested and whisked away. Emily tightened my room's security, stationing a guard outside. "You're a magnet for trouble," she said, half joking, half worried. The fifth danger was the most personal. My brother Ethan visited, alone, his charming smile a mask I'd seen too many times. He sat by my bed thinking I was unconscious and whispered, "You should have stayed out of Dad's way, Claire. This could have been easier." He adjusted my IV, his movements deliberate, but I'd rigged a silent alarm with Lucas's help. Emily burst in, catching him mid-act. "Step away, Ethan," she snapped, her phone already dialing security. He fled, but the damage was done. I knew my own brother was complicit. With Lucas's help, I contacted Sophia again, using a secure VPN to avoid my parents' private investigator who'd been sniffing around my digital footprint. "They're filing for conservatorship," Sophia warned. "They claim you're brain dead, incapable of managing the estate." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Let them try. I'm more alive than they think." We moved fast, transferring the vineyard and Palo Alto condo to my name, liquidating stocks for $9 million, 0 cents. I decided to sell everything, not out of greed but survival. Those properties were anchors my parents would drag me down with, contesting every deed in court. "Do it quick," I told Sophia. "I want nothing they can touch." As my body healed, my resolve hardened. I donated $1 million, 0 cents, to the hospital's trauma unit, a tribute to Victoria's belief in helping those without support. I paid my $620,000, 0 cents hospital bill, a final middle finger to my parents' refusal to help. Lucas modified his loft for my discharge, installing ramps and biometric locks to keep me safe. Emily orchestrated a covert exit, listing me as transferred to a rehab facility in Oregon. On discharge day, we slipped out a service entrance, avoiding the main lobby where my parents' PI might be waiting. In Lucas's loft, surrounded by my favorite books and a view of the Bay Bridge, I felt a flicker of freedom. But the fight wasn't over. My parents were still plotting, still believing I was comatose, still chasing Victoria's fortune. Lucas uncovered more. Richard had bribed a judge to fast-track the conservatorship, and Ethan was feeding Cyphertech insider data on my encryption protocol. The stakes were higher than I'd imagined, not just personal but corporate warfare. I planned a final confrontation, a trap to expose them. Sophia set a meeting at her office, baiting them with a vague promise of estate discussions. "They'll come," I told Lucas, applying concealer to the scar on my forehead. "They think I'm a broken doll they can manipulate." I wasn't broken. I was forged in fire tempered by betrayal. As I prepared to face my family, cane in hand, I felt no fear, only clarity. They'd tried to erase me, to steal what Victoria built for me. But I was Claire Thompson, the girl who'd coded her way out of their shadow, who'd survived a bomb and their poison. They'd learn soon enough. You don't bury someone who's still breathing. The air in Lucas's loft felt heavy with the weight of secrets, the kind that cling to your skin like smoke after a fire. It was my first night out of the hospital, and though the biometric locks on the door and the wheelchair ramps gave me a sense of safety, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still a target. My body ached, third-degree burns still raw under bandages, my pelvis a lattice of pins and pain, but my mind was razor-sharp, fueled by a mix of fury and determination. I had survived a car bomb, a tampered IV, a sabotaged elevator, a rigged therapy machine, and my own brother's attempt to poison me. But survival wasn't enough. I wanted justice. No, more than that. I wanted to dismantle the empire of greed my parents and Ethan had built around my grandmother, Victoria's legacy. Lucas sat across from me at the dining table, his laptop open, its screen casting a blue glow across his tired face. He'd been up all night, digging through encrypted files he'd pulled from Cyphertech's servers. The rival company we now knew was tied to my father's law firm. "Claire, you need to see this," he said, sliding the laptop toward me. My hands, still clumsy from nerve damage, fumbled with the trackpad as I scanned the email chain he'd uncovered. It was a correspondence between Richard Thompson, my father, and a Cyphertech VP named Marcus Heller. The subject line was innocuous, Project Synergy Updates, but the content was a knife to the gut. "Neutralizing Nexus's encryption protocol is priority 1, Heller wrote. Thompson, your firm's discretion is appreciated. The incident with CT should resolve any immediate threats." CT. Claire Thompson. Me. The incident was the bomb that nearly burned me alive. My father hadn't just known about it, he'd helped orchestrate it. I pushed the laptop away, my breath catching. He didn't just want the inheritance, Lucas. He wanted me dead to kill my project. My encryption protocol, the one I'd poured years into, was set to revolutionize data security, threatening Cyphertech's market dominance. Killing me was a 2-for-1. Secure Victoria's $12 million, 0 cents, and bury Nexus Innovations. Lucas's jaw tightened, his eyes dark with the same anger I felt. "There's more," he said, pulling up another file. "Your dad's firm wired $200,000, 0 cents, to an offshore account 2 days before the explosion. The account's linked to a known fixer, someone who specializes in accidents." I stared at the numbers, the cold proof of my father's betrayal. "We need to get this to Sophia," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "She's transferring the estate, but this could be leverage." Sophia Chen, Victoria's attorney, had been my lifeline since I'd found her email in the hospital. She was due to visit the loft that morning, bringing documents to finalize the transfer of the Napa Vineyard and Palo Alto condo into my name. I'd already decided to sell everything, $3 million, 0 cents in properties, $9 million, 0 cents in tech stocks, to cut any ties my parents could exploit, but the new evidence changed the game. This wasn't just about protecting my inheritance, it was about exposing a conspiracy that reached beyond my family into the heart of Silicon Valley's cutthroat tech wars. The knock at the door came at 9 a.m., sharp and deliberate. Lucas checked the security feed on his phone, confirming it was Sophia before disarming the locks. She stepped inside, her tailored blazer and no-nonsense demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos of my life. "Claire, you look stronger already," she said, setting her briefcase on the table. I managed a weak smile, leaning on my titanium cane. Pain's a great motivator. She didn't waste time, spreading out legal documents like a general laying out battle plans. "The vineyard and condo are yours as of yesterday. The stocks are trickier, some are tied up in regulatory approvals, but we're moving as fast as possible." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "Your father's firm filed for conservatorship last night. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent due to the brain injury." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "They're desperate. They know I'm awake." Sophia nodded, pulling out a tablet. "Dr. Pierce sent me his neurological assessment. You're fully competent, Claire, and his report is ironclad. But Richard's got a judge in his pocket. Judge Harlan, who owes him favors. We need to move faster than their legal maneuvers." Lucas slid his laptop toward her, showing the Cyphertech emails. This might help. Richard's tied to the bomb that almost killed her. Sophia's face hardened as she read, her fingers tightening on the tablet. "This is explosive. Literally. If we can authenticate these, we can not only block the conservatorship, but open a criminal investigation." The plan was simple but perilous. Keep my recovery a secret, liquidate the estate, and gather enough evidence to bury my parents and Cyphertech. But danger had a way of finding me. That afternoon, as I worked through physical therapy in Lucas's converted home gym, the first new threat emerged. I was strapped into a leg press, gritting my teeth against the pain, when the machine's hydraulics hissed and buckled. The weights, hundreds of pounds, plummeted toward my legs. I screamed, rolling sideways as Lucas yanked me free, the metal crashing inches from where I'd been. My therapist, a nervous woman named Carla, stammered apologies, but Lucas was already inspecting the machine. "This was tampered with," he said, pointing to a severed hydraulic line. "Someone got in here." My heart pounded. The loft was supposed to be a fortress, but my parents' reach was longer than I'd feared. Lucas tightened security, installing motion sensors and upgrading the biometric locks, but the incident shook me. They weren't just waiting for me to die, they were actively hunting me. That night I couldn't sleep, the pain in my burns mingling with paranoia. Every creak of the loft's old floors felt like an intruder. Lucas stayed up, monitoring the cameras, his hand never far from the encrypted phone we used to communicate with Sophia. At 3 a.m., he woke me, his voice low. "Claire, we've got a problem. Someone tried to hack the loft's security system." I traced it to a server linked to Ethan's law firm. My brother. The golden boy who'd whispered poison in my hospital room. He wasn't just complicit, he was leading the charge. I sat up, ignoring the stab of pain in my pelvis. "He's working with Dad, isn't he?" Lucas nodded, showing me the hack's digital footprint. "Ethan's firm has a cybersecurity division. They're not amateurs. They're trying to find you, probably to confirm you're not in Oregon like the hospital records say." The fake transfer to a rehab facility, orchestrated by Emily, had bought us time, but it was running out. I grabbed the burner phone and texted Sophia. "Ethan's hacking my location. We need to accelerate the estate sale and get those emails to the FBI." Her reply was instant. "On it. Stay hidden. I'm meeting a federal contact tomorrow." The next day brought another blow. Sophia called, her voice tight. "Richard's firm just filed a lawsuit claiming you were coerced into selling the vineyard and condo. They're trying to freeze your accounts." I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "On what grounds?" "They're saying you're under duress, possibly from Lucas," she said. I glanced at Lucas, who was debugging code on his laptop, his brow furrowed. The accusation was absurd, but it stung. Lucas had risked everything for me, his job, his safety, his sanity. "They're grasping," I said, "but they've got money and influence. Can you counter it?" Sophia's voice was steel. "Already filed a motion to dismiss, backed by Dr. Pierce's report and your signed directives. But Claire, they're not stopping. I got a tip they've hired a private investigator to track you." The investigator was the first of 5 new tensions that tightened the noose around me. That evening, as Lucas drove me to a physical therapy session in a borrowed van with tinted windows, I noticed a black SUV tailing us. Lucas spotted it too, his hands tightening on the wheel. "Hold on," he said, taking a sharp turn down a side street. The SUV followed, closing the gap. My heart raced as memories of the explosion flooded back. Flames, glass, the scream of metal. "Lose 'em," I said, my voice steady despite the panic. Lucas wove through San Francisco's hilly streets, cutting through alleys and doubling back until the SUV vanished. But the message was clear. My parents knew I wasn't in Oregon. They were hunting me. Back at the loft, I checked my email through a triple encrypted VPN, a precaution Lucas had insisted on. There it was, a new message, anonymous, no sender ID. "Abandon the inheritance, or the next accident won't miss." The words chilled me, but Lucas traced the email in minutes, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "It's from a server at Ethan's firm," he said, his voice low. "Your brother's not just following orders, he's writing the playbook." I stared at the screen, the threat glowing like a neon warning. Ethan, who'd once cried when I bandaged his scraped knee, was now orchestrating my demise. The betrayal cut deeper than any bomb. The second tension hit the next morning. Sophia called with bad news. The judge overseeing the conservatorship case, Harlan, had fast-tracked the hearing to next week. "Richard's pulling strings," she said. "Harlan's in his pocket and they're pushing the narrative that you're brain-damaged, incapable of managing $12 million 0 cents. I felt the walls closing in. If they won conservatorship, they'd control not just the inheritance, but my life, my medical decisions, my freedom. "We need to stop them," I said. Sophia agreed, but her voice was grim. "We've got Pierce's report, but Richard's team is fabricating evidence, fake medical records, even a forged letter from you, naming him as your proxy." I slammed my fist on the table, pain shooting through my burns. They were rewriting my story, erasing my agency. Lucas and I doubled down, working with Sophia to liquidate the estate faster. She sold the vineyard to a tech billionaire for $2,800,000 0 cents, and the Palo Alto condo to a startup for $1,400,000 0 cents, netting $11,200,000 0 cents after fees. The stocks were next, a complex process due to SEC regulations, but Sophia's team worked around the clock. "Once the money's in your secure accounts, they can't touch it," she assured me. I used the first funds to pay my $620,000 0 cents hospital bill, a defiant act against my parents' refusal to help. Then, in Victoria's name, I donated $1 million 0 cents to the hospital's trauma unit, earmarking it for patients abandoned by their families. Dr. Pierce called, his voice thick with emotion. "Claire, this will save lives. You're honoring your grandmother's heart." But the third tension loomed. Lucas intercepted a call on our encrypted line, a tip from a Nexus colleague. My parents had hired a fixer, the same one tied to the bomb, to stage another accident. The plan was vague, but the threat was real. A staged break-in at the loft, designed to look random but end with me dead. Lucas upgraded our security again, adding panic buttons and a direct line to the police. That night, as we sat in the dark, the city's lights glittering beyond the windows, I felt the weight of being hunted. "Lucas," I whispered, "what if we can't stop them?" He took my hand, his grip firm. "We will. You're not just fighting for you. You're fighting for everyone Cyphertech's hurt." The fourth tension came at dawn. I woke to an alert on Lucas's laptop. Someone had breached my personal cloud storage, downloading files from my Nexus projects. It wasn't just my inheritance they wanted. They were after my encryption protocol, the one that could make or break billions in the tech world. Lucas traced the breach to a hacker at Ethan's firm, confirming my brother's role. "He's feeding Cyphertech your work," Lucas said, his voice tight with rage. "If they crack your code, Nexus is finished." I felt a surge of protectiveness, not just for myself, but for my team, the people who'd believed in me. I couldn't let them down. The fifth tension was the most visceral. On the day of the confrontation, Lucas drove me to Sophia's office in a rented SUV, our route planned to avoid tails. But halfway there, a black van cut us off, forcing Lucas to swerve onto a side street. Two men in ski masks emerged, crowbars in hand, smashing the SUV's windows. I screamed, clutching my cane as Lucas floored the gas, barreling through a red light to escape. My heart pounded as we lost them, but the attack left me shaking. "They know we're meeting Sophia," I said, my voice trembling. Lucas nodded, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror. "They're desperate. This meeting's their last chance to stop you." And at Sophia's office, we arrived early, my nerves frayed but my resolve unbreakable. Sophia had arranged the conference room like a courtroom. Me at the head, Lucas and her at my side, a tablet loaded with evidence ready to play. My parents and Ethan walked in at 2 p.m., their faces a mask of false concern. "Claire, darling," my mother said, her arms outstretched. "We've been so worried." I raised my cane, stopping her cold. "Sit down," I said, my voice like steel. Richard's eyes narrowed, Ethan's widened, and their attorney, a slick man named Victor Grayson, shifted uncomfortably. Sophia took charge, her tone icy. "This is a formal meeting regarding Victoria Hamilton's estate. Claire is fully competent, as Dr. Pierce's report confirms." I didn't wait for their lies. I played the recordings. My parents' hospital plotting, Richard's bribe to the administrator, Ethan's whispered threat by my bedside. Their voices filled the room, raw and damning. "She's a lost cause," my father had said. "Let nature take its course." Ethan's words followed. "You should have stayed out of Dad's way, Claire." Their faces crumpled. Margaret's with shock, Richard's with fury, Ethan's with guilt. Grayson tried to intervene, claiming the recordings were illegal, but Sophia shut him down. "California's one-party consent law says otherwise, and we have more emails tying Richard to Cyphertech's bombing." I leaned forward, my cane tapping the table. "I've sold everything. The vineyard, the condo, the stocks. $11,200,000, 0 cents, secured in accounts you'll never touch. The conservatorship is dead, your lawsuit is dead, and if you come near me again, these recordings go to the press, the FBI, and every client at your firm." Richard lunged, his face purple with rage, but Lucas stepped in, restraining him with a strength I hadn't seen before. "You're done," I said, my voice calm but lethal. "You tried to kill me for money and power. I pity you, chasing shadows while I build something real." Margaret sobbed. Ethan stared at the floor, and Richard's threats dissolved into silence. I walked out, Lucas at my side, the click of my cane echoing like a victory march. Outside, the San Francisco sun was blinding, a promise of freedom, but as we drove away, Lucas's phone buzzed with a new alert, a leaked memo from Cyphertech hinting at a second attack on Nexus. My heart sank. This wasn't over. There were questions unanswered, shadows lurking. Who else at Richard's firm was involved? What secrets had Victoria hidden in her estate documents, maybe, that could expose Cyphertech's deeper crimes? Would Ethan strike back, his pride wounded? Could my tech venture take down a corporate giant? And Lucas, my rock, my savior? Could I trust him completely, or was there a chance, however small, that his loyalty hid a motive tied to my wealth? As we pulled into the loft, I looked at Lucas, his profile sharp against the city lights. "We're not done fighting," I said. He nodded, his hand finding mine. "Then we fight together." In that moment, I felt Victoria's strength in me, her belief that I could rise above betrayal. I wasn't just surviving, I was rewriting my story, one line of code, one act of defiance at a time. The shadows could close in, but I'd be ready, burning brighter than the explosion that tried to break me.